need more force to enforce those rights. And that's why we give it away.
One of the interesting arguments I've been in several different times, excuse me, one time in Virginia, one of the professors there, Professor James Caesar, was giving a class and argued that these are divine rights that can't be taken away. And I was puzzled because it's so obvious to me that these were rights that developed as these theories developed, and that of course the individuals that referred to them as divine rights, because they were coming from a culture that still thought of the king as having a divine right. Well, what about us? Don't we have divine rights? And so on. So there's good reason why they referred to them that way. But of course, we're at the point where we can see how these are all sociological events. They occur in a particular history. When you look around the world, you see that most societies don't even follow this contract theory as an explanation for how government works. It's pure force, really, in a lot of places. And yet it's an absolutely beautiful theory, and it really works. I mean, so when you think about all the conflict and everything, when you get right down to it, our infrastructure is intact, and so is the infrastructure in Europe and the UK, right? I mean, the areas where the social contract theory took root and gradually created societies is the best places are the best places to live today, right? And so we might want to improve it, but when you get right down to it, this was a terrific step. But it wasn't divine, in a sense where these rights can't be taken away. They are negotiable, and you could see it constantly being negotiated in places like France and the Brexit. I mean, what really is at the heart, in a way, of the Brexit issue is whether the Brits were losing their rights to the EU, because by having the EU as 28 countries, and it's ruled essentially by a unelected body, that they're appointed by all the different countries, right? But you don't get to vote on who is in that body. So basically, everyone in the EU is now being ruled by this group that you don't have any say in, right?
Makes it non-contractual.
And so the Brits all wanted out, especially because a lot of the requirements were infringing on what they used. Some of it was really silly. I mean, if you look at the list of complaints and things. So they wanted out, and of course, it was a touch and go vote. Would it be duplicated, if it happened today after all this? I don't know. But when you get right down to it, it's a matter of the rights, that are given up in order to be a member of the EU. I mean, there were good things about being in the EU, too. You could travel without worry across borders, and a lot of people moved to England to work, and a lot of English moved to other places, and moved back and forth. They have a tunnel, the channel, right, that you could just drive from one to the other. It looks hellacious, though. You get your car and put it on a train, and the train drives through the tunnel, and I'd feel weird going across. However, but yeah, there are folks that teach the social contract rights as God-given, so you can't take them away. And yet it's absolutely clear that if you break the rules, you lose them. So they're not divine in that sense. Plus, they've obviously been negotiated over time. Others especially have been admitted into the contract. When you read Locke talks about slaves, for example, and you think, well, wait a minute, how can you be made the property of someone else? You're a person. Well, according to Locke, if you were in a state of war and you lost to the enemy and you were captured, strictly speaking, the people that captured you have the right to kill you anytime they feel like. Or, if it's to their benefit, they can make you do things. You could be their slave. So basically, you're their property now. And even if they move, say, into the United States, you are still their property, and no one has the right to take away their property, right? Even if that property is another person. So Locke has all sorts of explanations for why slavery is... I mean, he apparently personally wasn't for slavery, but he was actually, John Locke was actually the head bursar or something of one of the companies that bought the slaves and shipped them, right? So, but as he worked with it, I think his mind changed. And so as he got older, he began feeling like slavery was a bad thing and it ought not to exist. But remember, England even moved away from slavery after a while. So that's kind of, sorry I don't know more. It's really fascinating, all that stuff. But looking at Marx, I guess I should have stuck to what I had here. It's kind of convenient. So Karl Marx, 1883. Today we think of him as primarily